Hello, everyone from all around the world. Again, as usual, thank you for joining and making time to spend this hour with us. We know you're in different time zones, and probably some of you should be going to sleep in a little bit, but we appreciate you making the time to attend, and I hope that this will be valuable and you'll get what you need out of it. So, our topic today, as we begin our journey this year again with a series of webinars on transforming to Agile, I thought a great one to start with this year would be thinking of Agile. Let's start here. How do you attempt to move to Agile as an organization? What does an Agile adoption roadmap look like? If you recall one of our previous webinars last year, and of course it's out there, it's recorded, you can watch it on the Lead Community or Practice website or go to agilevideos.com under webinars, and it was on scaling Agile. So we thought, some companies have already adopted it. How do they scale it to multiple teams? We're taking one step back over here to say, how do you really even get started with Agile adoption? And we have a ton of people that have joined that already have experience with Agile adoption, so I'm hoping that we can sort of also get some best practices and lessons learned from the real world. So, with that, we will begin our presentation. I think many of you know me, so I won't spend too much time here. Background, I come from an IT background with java.net, used to do SOA, and fell in love with Agile and Scrum and Lean and all of this several years ago, and I got certified. I think it was 7 or maybe 8 years ago now, and just have been, created an organization which is Agile Transformation, and this is all we do is help organizations transform to Agile through training, coaching, videos, anything that they need to succeed. So I would like to ask you if you could brainstorm with me and tell me, as you are adopting Agile now, or maybe as you're considering Agile adoption, what are the top challenges and questions in your mind? What are the top barriers to successful Agile adoption? And so what questions were you really hoping to get answered from our webinar today? So go ahead and jot some of these down in the chat. And for those of you, again, that potentially have already, adopted Agile for a while, maybe what you can share is what are some of the lessons learned or gotchas that you wish you would have known about from the beginning. So go ahead, take a few minutes and submit in the chat what questions are on your mind or what would you like to share as it relates to the challenges of Agile adoption. And I'll read some of those off. Getting documentation, how to change if an organization, it's moving so fast on me, has already been set on a specific methodology for years. That's a great one. What does an Agile culture look like? What are some of the first steps? How do you manage dependencies? Another one is lessons learned from Gene. Bridge building is more important than fighting resistance. Oh, what a great one. Yes. How do I change, let's see another one. How to best adopt into an implementation methodology versus pure software development methodology. Very good. So what if it's not just about software? Oh, I like that one. What is Agile? And Danielle will give you some resources around figuring out what is Agile, understanding a little bit more about that. How do you get customers to be active in the process? That's a really good one too. How do you make our Agile team members or our team members understand Agile? And where do you get basically simple developer-oriented training? How do you integrate, this is a good one, how do you integrate Agile deliverables into the waterfall lifecycle? I get that question a lot. So those are very good questions. Those are a lot around, this is another one. How do you measure whether the things that we're doing are part of Agile or not? And potentially, how do you even measure the success of Agile? From Derek. Okay, so let's address some of these. We'll see if we can get to all of them, but let's begin our journey here. One of the first things I wanted to share, and as some of these questions that we'll go through, and of course we'll try to integrate some of yours, the popular one that I get is, I'm a lonely person out there. I know Agile, I think it's great, but how do I influence others in my organization or even in my team and get buy-in for Agile? So this is a common one. What are the different strategies for Agile adoption? People basically say, how do I start? How do I even do this? What does an Agile adoption roadmap really look like? What are the steps to adopt Agile? How can I pick the pilot project is a very popular question that we always get. A lot of people ask this: Agile, Scrum, Lean, Kanban, Extreme Programming. What the heck? Which one do I use when? How do I know which one of these methods applies to my type of work? And then what are the common gotchas, things that we wish we would have known about earlier? And then finally, how do I know if the pilot was successful? And then what happens after the pilot? So we'll go through some of these and try to integrate some of the ones that you've asked in terms of Agile adoption. So the top challenges and drivers for change, I think many of you have seen this from some of our previous webinars, but I'm focusing on them again because it's very important. I cannot tell you how important it is for you to know, why are you adopting Agile? Which one of those relates to your own organization? Do you have a large backlog of work that's not getting done? Do you have constantly changing business priorities? Do you have silos and handoffs? Things are not getting done because too many people have to hand off work. Slow time to market, it takes way too long to get anything done. Requirements are always missing or incomplete. Multitasking is my favorite thing to talk about these days, is everyone's working on everything at the same time. And all the projects are we were nibbling at all the projects in our company that weren't getting nothing done. There's no way to measure enterprise capacity or to even see the ranked backlog. If I asked you what's your top 10 most important projects within your company, some companies don't know how to answer that. Ineffective meetings, quality and rework. This is a popular one that I see people talk about. Unrealistic estimates and the due dates that are frequently missed also cause people to change. Lack of empowerment, low morale, specialized roles, heavy processes and documentation. It becomes, there's more focus in your company around the documentation and the process than getting things done. Working on things that are not actually valuable, and there's no value being measured from everything that's being done. So why are all these important? Because no one wants you to move to Agile just because Agile is cool, or Gartner said Agile is the way to go, or all the other companies are doing it. That would be the wrong reason to move to Agile. You have to identify which one of those, maybe all of them, maybe a few of them, and prioritize what are your top objectives for moving to Agile. And if you don't see this, because this is the language, this is the common language that you can talk to your team, to your executives, to managers. You have to talk about real world problems that we are trying to solve by moving to Agile. Disengagement, lack of trust between business and IT. Any of these things are real world practical things that we can say, this is the problem we're trying to solve, as opposed to we just want to try Agile. So that's sort of step number one. In terms of, well, how then can you get people to learn and understand and be influenced to even consider Agile? These are techniques that have actually people shared with me that they've done, and I've seen them do this. Sharing specific Agile articles, videos, and presentations with key influential leaders and team members. So that's one of the reasons we put out agilevideos.com and a lot of these webinars and the lead community or practice webinars and articles and blogs. There are a lot of information out there that you can begin to share. And it could be, instead of sharing a whole bunch, maybe you find one or two very strategically specific resources that talk about the kind of problems that your organization is actually facing. And it could be the time to market, it could be the lack of communication and trust, it could be a lot of the defects and bugs that you've got, it could be maybe Agile for non-IT, something that relates to how Agile and Scrum applies to non-software projects. But don't just throw up your hand and say, well, I don't know how I'm going to convince people to do it. Become a little bit more proactive about finding some of these resources, whether they're short videos, articles, blogs, and share them with who you know are change agents. And why do I specifically call out change agents? Those are people that you know, they're the kind of people that once they're inspired, once they see that there is a problem and that there's potentially a solution for it, they're the ones that are like go-getters. They'll stand behind it. They're influential. They'll talk to other people. They will rally behind it and try to make it work. Because you need some of these positive people, the can-do, with the can-do attitude, as opposed to, no, this is never going to work. You need a lot of those kind of individuals to help fuel the initial fire. We've done this several times, which is maybe specific leaders know that they have the pain points that we talked about, and then you get a specific presentation completely tailored that discusses a strategy for how to deal with some of these and how Agile can actually help with the specific leaders. This could be a webinar, it could be an actual in-person presentation, but basically get in front of the leaders that really want to make this change happen. Lunch and learn sessions, this was interesting. One CIO executive came to a session. So this is real. I mean, they came to a session that we had, that we were just talking about Agile and how it can help recover troubled projects. And this is where she learned about it. This organization now, it's a large insurance company, has been going 3.5, maybe 4 years now. in actually transforming themselves to Agile. It never started with their desire to just do Agile. It really started with solving a current problem of some large projects, programs. It was over 100 people, that initial program, that had to be turned around. And so she would actually even say that, we were crashing, and the pain of the project that we had going on is what really led us to Agile. And then after that, they started to see some of the other benefits. Invite others to local Agile events that are going on in your community and be aware of them. Go to meetup.com and see what are some of the local Agile events that are going on, and if you can invite people to go there. And another thing that I normally talk about is if you're in a kind of organization where it's so hard to get leadership buy-in into making any change, maybe what you're looking for is not the whole world has to agree to moving holistically to Agile. Maybe you just need just enough buy-in to pilot Agile. And to pilot Agile means, can we just try it? Before we make assumptions, before we judge if it's going to work or not, can I get enough buy-in from the key stakeholders to at least allow one project team to be successful? Now, buy-in sounds good on the surface, but it's easy to talk the talk and not walk the walk. Buy-in also means that those team members that you've allocated for the pilot will be allowed to focus and actually make that pilot a success, that you're going to have the right team members, that you're not going to keep pulling them apart from the project, that you're not going to multitask them on several other. I mean, if you're going to pilot Agile, you have to pilot it sort of with the basic recipe for success, and then you can obviously change the recipe as you gain more experience with it yourselves. But so that's something that's important, is maybe it's just enough to pilot Agile. Part of your Agile adoption and influence will be to learn how to speak about the value of Agile. And it's beyond the scope of this webinar, but for those of you that are new, that don't know why Agile, how could you compare Agile to traditional, and why is Agile a little bit better for specific types of projects, then I think it's important for you to watch this video. So again, this was another video that we did for the lead community practice on the business ROI and value of Agile methods, and this has all the statistics, the actual numbers from a business value, visibility, risk, adaptability and flexibility, the numbers on all the surveys and companies and case studies that have actually been doing Agile. What was the bottom line improvement that organizations have seen by adopting a lot of these collaborative, team-based, high visibility, high accountability type of methods. So again, if you're completely brand new to Agile, I would highly suggest, because we're not going to cover it in this webinar, which is, what are the basics, what is Agile, but please go back and watch some of our early webinars on the business ROI and value of Agile. We also have an excellent one called an overview of the Agile life cycle, or I think a journey through the Agile life cycle that takes you step by step through what teams do when they're moving to Agile. But I would either watch this yourself or maybe share some of this with some of the leaders that are still skeptical to say, well, does it really work? And you'll notice something about that specific webinar is it also talks about Agile for non-IT. So how the government's moving to Agile, how businesses, hardware type teams are moving to Agile, where all of that relates to each other. So I wanted to share here that this is not really about succeeding with Agile itself. Most organizations that are looking to transform themselves are actually ultimately trying to build a high-performing organization. So what this is really ultimately about, it's high performance. We need to do what we're doing better. Agile, Lean, Scrum, Kanban, improving your engineering practices, improving your requirements gathering, all these are what we call process transformation skills. These are things to transform the work that you do and how you do it. What we found as the missing ingredient in a lot of Agile transformations that we've seen is the people side of it. You can't just transform processes and not transform and focus on the people side. Agile really is centered around these high-performing, collaborative, empowered, innovative teams. Well, how do you get to that? You have to have effective facilitation skills. You can't have meetings that are, well, they're going to fall apart even worse now, because if you're bringing people from different departments that never work with each other and you don't know how to facilitate effectively, reach results, actually get action items at the end, then you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle with Agile or even before Agile, because collaboration is difficult, right? You don't know how to handle dominators, people that naysayers, right? They're always saying everything's not going to work. Quiet people that never interact within the session. How do you effectively do that? Well, that's a skill. obviously, that people will need. Servant leadership is a critical skill for your management leaders and even team leads and architects and senior folks that are supposed to be mentoring, helping, and growing others. Because servant leadership talks about some of the damage that happens from a purely command and control, top-down, directive style of leadership, and how finding something in the middle where it's more of a servant leader style, knowing that your role in the organization is to serve the teams that actually get the work done. A lot of people still think, well, the teams report to me, so I have the power, I'm the one that has more value, they just report to me. In the servant leadership innovative model, you really understand that the teams on the ground, the execution teams, are the ones that are adding value to the organization. We are here to help them, to enable them, to set a vision for them, and to clear impediments. Companies that move to Agile without some level of understanding of servant leadership or investing in their management and leadership education on how the leadership style needs to change also struggle with their Agile adoption. So stable teams is the concept of moving away, and this might not happen all at the same time, but moving away from project teams that we put together for a specific project, and then boom, we just destroy, and then we put together another team again, and then we destroy. For any of you that are familiar with the Tuckman team maturity model, right, where teams are forming, then they go through storming, then they go through norming, and then they finally perform, you realize that that's the recipe for disaster. Continuously pulling people off and on makes them never perform. It creates so much change that people, and I've actually had people on my team say this, I really don't need to invest, Sally, on making this relationship with the tester work. I had an analyst tell me this one time. I don't really need to invest on making this relationship with that tester work because this is a short-term project, and this is not really my real team. I belong to the analyst team, and that's my team. So I don't have to be friends with anyone over here. We just need to get the work done. Interesting, really. When you think about it, cross-functional teams are the teams that deliver value. It's not the functional teams. And so no, I absolutely need those teams to have stability, and I want them to build strong relationships because I want them to deliver value. So stable teams is a concept of going into teams that their work and their backlog changes, but you don't shuffle around the resources. You keep just changing what they're working on. That's why you don't name them by a specific project name anymore. The previous webinar that we had, and you can also find that on agilevideos.com, is called Rethinking Portfolio and Capacity Planning. It's a higher level type webinar. I would highly recommend that you watch that one if you like the concept of stable teams. And then obviously people need to work with each other and know how to talk to each other and resolve conflict. By living in these silos for so long, before we had to move to Agile teams, it was okay to just hang out only with the tester team or the project management team or the analyst or this business unit team and not work with the other teams, and actually even worse, we learned how to point fingers at each other, blame each other, and conflict resolution was through escalation. I just go talk to my manager, you go talk to your manager, and we let the managers work it out. And so normally the managers, it's all the escalation and the unneeded, unnecessary drama. And so all of that needs to be cleaned up. You're moving into a new mindset and a new framework where people now cross-functionally need to work with each other and know how to talk to each other, have crucial conversations, resolve conflict, and work as one team. So I know I spent too much time on this picture, but it's really important because I think without understanding that it does take a combination of process transformation and people transformation, this all goes into that roadmap that we're going to talk about in terms of who needs to learn what. Yes, Agile is a different way of thinking and working, Jean, and that's why fundamentally it really shifts the model of how we adopt it. Now, let's say I want to adopt Agile. What are my different options? And this is not the only way to do it, but here's what we've seen in the industry. There's the top-down executive buy-in. This is where an organization gets the right attention of executives, and trust me, because we work with executives all the time. When executives understand the value that Agile, Lean, all these things that we just talked about will deliver, almost every executive we've ever talked to has the goal of high performance. They want things to be more efficient. They want things out the door faster. They will absolutely buy into this. If they don't, it's just a lack of understanding yet of how this all comes together, or maybe some sort of a stereotype that they've heard before about, oh, we've tried Agile and XP in this one little team and it didn't work, so it's not for us. I really think that getting executives to understand the value and the drivers, they will actually become the sponsors of Agile and the evangelists in terms of getting it, rolling it out there. There's the meat in the middle, and then there's also the bottom-up grassroots movement. When Agile first started, it was the hush-hush grassroots movement. It was really a bunch of teams sort of quietly and slowly adopting some of these techniques and best practices. And yes, I mean, Agile it did come through, and Scrum and all of them did come through the IT world. So that's why you see so many books that talk about software development. We had a lot of big problems to solve in that area. We had a lot of projects that were not delivering, that had too many defects, they took forever. Customers were not happy. It just seemed like the biggest bang for the buck is to start with some of these IT and software projects and fix some of these problems. But you will see that in the industry right now, a lot of the concepts of Agile apply to beyond IT, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So the grassroots movement is where a team quietly or just they attempt to go make Agile succeed, and then hopefully through the success of Agile, they'll get enough attention that other people will want to do it. Meet in the middle is a little bit of both. So this is a strategy where I'm going to get some teams to pilot Agile, but I'm going to begin to influence some of the management and maybe some of the top leaders at the same time. Obviously, our recommended approach is meet in the middle, because you want a top-down influence strategy, you want a bottom-up influence strategy, so that everything sort of comes in the middle. And we've seen all those with different pros and cons for all of them work. One of the first things that you would do as you're thinking about adopting Agile, again, we talked about this, is understanding your drivers for change. So out of that big backlog of problems, or potentially you have different ones, why would you want to change what you're doing right now? Did you see any of those in that first slide that you could relate to? And then identify what are your barriers to adoption. Like one person had already chatted and said, we have invested so much in Waterfall or in our existing XYZ process that just that in itself, it's not like people don't know that you do need to change. It's not like people don't realize that some stuff is not very efficient. They're just like, we've invested so much in it, we've sent so much people to training, we've got Waterfall to the yin-yang, our processes are documented, it all is there, I don't think we want to change. It's sort of like status quo. I'd rather just keep it the way that it is than go through changing everything again. You need to know those. You need to know what are the top barriers and the top drivers, and there's a really good technique called force field analysis that could help you analyze and prioritize so you can develop a strategy. And then also you want to assess your culture. What kind of a culture do you live in as an organization? So command and control. Command and control culture is where you know it. I mean, it's so pervasive in the company that management and leadership makes all the decisions, right? Teams pretty much just follow. Everything's very directive. You're told what to do. No, I don't need your input right now, really. Just do as I say. Thanks for trying to think, but we don't need that right now. It's mostly around top-down directive type of an organization. Now, it could be because it's highly regulated, you know, there's fear of making mistakes, so I'm probably speaking about this negatively, obviously, because I don't like aggressive command and control, but there's probably some legitimate reasons for maybe why that organization attempted to do that. And it could potentially be just because leaders don't know any other way. That's what they've been taught. It's like military. I mean, this is the way you're supposed to do it. It's command and control. In that kind of an organization, many times we've seen Agile be adopted top-down or bottom-up. What does that mean? We've seen the top-down go to Agile or else. Everyone must do Agile tomorrow. I don't care if you like it. I don't care if you hate it. You're going to go. You're just going to do it now, as I say. We've also seen the bottom-up where teams that love Agile and know that they want to work in this fashion, hushly and quietly try to get Agile going, and then hopefully, you know, that will begin to influence some of the leaders that are there. In an innovative, team-based culture, then, you know, we've seen a little bit more of the meat in the middle, where, you know, leadership buys in, and the teams also begin to adopt Agile, and we've also seen just a lot of grassroots movements where, you know, leaders really empower the teams and say, hey, if you guys think this is the way to go, sure, go for it, let's do it bottom up, you know, why don't you do that project that way? And of course, if you have a mixed culture, it could be any of these strategies. But let's talk a little bit more about the pros and cons of any of them. So a bottom-up grassroots movement, what's the goal? So if you are in this camp of maybe it's a command and control culture, maybe you're afraid, maybe you feel like you don't have enough access to anyone that is strategic or that is a leader or that is influential. And so you're like, look, Sally, all I can do is get this little team to maybe do Agile well, and that's all my goal is. So that's called a grassroots movement. So your objective is to get maybe one or a few teams to pilot Agile, hush, hush way. Let success breed the buy-in. So once you succeed with Agile, then you're going to get buy-in. How would you do this? Then obviously identify the pilots, identify one or two pilots that are good for Agile, and I'll give you some specific items to look for. And I would highly, highly, highly suggest, please, don't skip the training and the coaching. I can't tell you how many teams I've seen that are trying to adopt Agile, and no, it's not because we do this in our company. I'm just being honest with you. Agile is a completely different way of working. It's a completely different way of thinking. And you can't expect people to go through change without any education, without any buy-in. You know, I've seen companies that have just thrown the book at everyone. Hey, go read Ken Schwaber's Scrum book and start doing it tomorrow. This requires change management, and people need to get excited about it. If you get a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety and a lot of people are nervous about doing this, then that in itself could bring down your Agile adoption because you just didn't plan this out very well. So our strategy, at least, is at the very beginning, at least for the first 3 months, we take the team through a workshop where they learn Agile. The workshop has to be very practical and hands-on. It's 3 days, and then give the team some level of coaching. You might have some people internally in your own company that have done Agile, that are experienced with it, they can coach your teams. Or maybe you need help from the outside. All I'm suggesting is, please, those first few months are critical. The first few months where the team needs to stand up on their feet and feel like they can be successful with this. It will either make the team or potentially break them. If they fail in the first few months, they're going to feel Agile doesn't work here, this is not for us. They'll get so confused that they might never come back to it again. And I've seen companies do that. I mean, they finally do come back to it after a few years, but it just takes longer. So suggestion here, please do not skip. And no, don't just send the Scrum Masters to Scrum Master training. Sorry for those of you that are doing that. I just have to be open and honest. I've also seen organizations where they just send a few people to training, and then you guys come back and you train the rest of the people. You know, maybe that does work if you're sending the right people, if they're influential, if they're strong, if they really can come back and train and help the other people. I just think the investment of getting a team together to learn together and the team building that happens because of that and that excitement and the energy for them to form as a team, I've just seen that go a long way. Okay, so I'm just sort of mentioning this because these are real world things that we've seen. Measure and communicate success. A lot of Agile teams forget this part because they're so good at getting work done, they're really bad at the PR part. The PR is the public relation marketing part. They don't know how to document their success. They don't know how to keep track of the value that they're delivering. They don't know how to show before and after. Before we did Agile, we used to release X number of times. After we're doing Agile, we release more frequently. Before we did Agile, here's a survey of our customer satisfaction with us. After Agile, here's how it's changed. Before Agile, we had X number of defects. They're not tracking any of this, and so when someone says, well, did this thing actually even work or not? People start just talking randomly, but they really don't know how to tell the story of the success. So from the very beginning of it, I would say please measure and communicate success, and obviously try to get an influential product owner or someone that was part of this team to do some of that PR work and be the cheerleader for the team and go out there and talk about the stories. What is the risk from a bottom-up movement? The risk is without management support. This is where just the team goes and does Agile, and maybe you just train the IT department on Agile. What happens is if the management layer is actually the most critical to the success of Agile, and it can be the biggest impediment if they don't understand Agile. Because what did managers do before? My job was to shuffle you around, to move you from one project to another, to allocate your time, to assign you to different priorities. When someone comes to me and says there's a new number one, I'm going to take my best person and put it on it, and or potentially change the task that you're working on. When managers don't realize their new role, because they do have a new role in Agile, but anything here, and still make it work. So basically that was the problem with the bottom up, right? The bottom up is management without meaning to might end up becoming an impediment for the team because of the shuffling, okay? The other one is meet in the middle. Meet in the middle is where you get a few teams to pilot Agile, but strategically you're smart enough to educate management and business early and get their buy-in, right? So even the business partners that you want them to engage. I can't tell you how many times I hear about people saying, well, our business doesn't want to interact with us and engage in Agile. They don't understand their role very well. And then I hear that, well, they've never been through training. They've never been told what their new role looks like. They've never understood what this means to their current allocation, that the product owner role is a serious role, that they're actually going to have maybe 30-40% of their time, if not more, maybe actually 40 at minimum, dedicated to this team. So they've never had a chance to go talk to their managers about it. So I say that this meet in the middle is where you take more of a strategic bottom-up and top-down approach, which is very good. How do you do this? Obviously, identify your pilots, get your initial team training and coaching, immediately roll out some level of training for leaders, management, and business so that you're covering both the bottom up, the top down, and again, do the PR movement, right? Begin to measure before and after. Take some track of some metrics. Now, what's the risk of meet in the middle? Meet in the middle works well, except when I've seen it only hit the management layer, but you haven't included any of the senior leaders in any of the education around Agile. So managers begin to get it, business supports it. Guess what senior leaders do? Change priorities. They change priorities all the time, and because they're influential enough, you get this VP and that VP that still say, no, I still want John on my other team over there because this is my number one priority right now. And so senior leaders, without meaning to, again, this is just the old way we've been doing it. They don't mean to be dysfunctional. This is the way that it used to be. I get my project approved. It's number one now. I pull your resources away. That was business as usual. So what happens is, without them understanding their role and how this is different, then you're going to get conflicting priorities, multitasking, and lack of strategic alignment, which means whatever they think we're supposed to be working on at the top, what the executives think are supposed to be the priorities, that's not really what the teams are working on. Because that connection, which is the lean portfolio management connection that we'll talk about in a little bit, that's not there. So, top down, what is the objective? The objective is, I'm going to cover sort of like all of it, the bottom, the middle, the executives. Get the executives to buy in for the need to change and the adoption strategy. So now if you're talking to executives, C-level, you really do have to speak about strategy. Here's the specific problems we're solving. Here's our strategy. Here's our roadmap. Here's what we're hoping to accomplish each quarter. Here's the milestones and deliverables that are measurable. And here's how we're going to start. And here's the pilot. So this is the second one. We're going to get a few teams to pilot Agile and Lean. Educate management and business on that, and then adopt Agile and Lean portfolio management in parallel. Okay, what does this mean? And what this means is that even though I'm taking a bottom-up approach and I'm piloting Agile within the teams, I'm taking a strategic approach by getting the executives to understand Lean and Agile portfolio management. If this is completely new to you, if what I'm saying doesn't make any sense, go back and look at the webinar that says Rethinking Portfolio and Capacity Planning to understand a little bit about what I'm talking about in terms of creating that ranked backlog at the top that teams can pull from, and we move from pushing work against the teams into teams pulling the work strategically. So that is my objective over here. I'm really taking a really good top-down, bottom-up approach. How? Identify the pilots, obviously initial team training, but what you're adding here is your senior leadership needs some education on Agile portfolio management and the concept of stable teams, which is a critical one that we always start with the executives. Another thing that I've added here that's been a best practice is we build a cross-functional Agile Champions team. And the Agile Champions team is a team, because here's another thing that I've seen. When Agile is brought in only through IT, sometimes the business rejects it, sometimes other departments reject it. When Agile is only brought in through the business, because I've been on that side too, then IT rejects it. But when there is a cross-functional Agile Champions team that's made out of all the wonderful stakeholders and potentially senior leaders, now we don't want this to be such a big team that they're not going to get anything done. This still needs to be 7 plus or minus 2. I would suggest probably 5, 6, 7 people maximum. But this is the team that's in charge of rolling out Agile successfully within the organization. Yes, as part of that team, there's normally an Agile transformation expert, someone at the enterprise, we call them an enterprise transformation coach that can really help the organization. But obviously that Agile Champions team is very powerful because you've got a cross-functional team representing business, IT, finance, HR, whoever the leaders are, and they get it. They get what this transformation is about, and we are going to walk them through the roadmap and the plan of rolling out Agile. So this is very powerful when you can get this done, and then they own this roadmap and they begin to transform the organization inside out. The risks of doing top-down, well, obviously if you don't do it exactly this way, if it's just a pure top-down, which we have been in companies that said, go Agile by next week, and then, boom, 40 Agile teams showed up, which is fine. The only problem is there's a lot of change management involved with moving to Agile, and if you do Agile in a command and control way, which is you say go Agile or else, then potentially you're going to get a lot of people that have never been educated on it, don't buy in, don't understand. Is that something that's going to happen anyway? Absolutely. Am I always going to have to deal with some of the naysayers, the people that don't believe in change, they don't want to? Absolutely. I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is the blind rollout of Agile and not having a plan for a real change management. How am I really going to influence these individuals and help them buy into it? There's no education that's being rolled out. You're not sharing a bunch of resources with anyone. It's sort of just do it or else. That I have seen revert back to form. People will tell management that they're still doing it, but really down deep inside, it's begin to erode slowly. You just got to give it 6 months. Once management starts to look for something different to do, it's really not going to stick. So it doesn't become a real transformation. So that's why I just wanted to sort of share some of these best practices with you. In terms of piloting, in terms of the actual phases, when we're helping an organization, the 3 phases of maturity that you would normally go through, and I wish I did those upside down because I really think pilot's at the very bottom, but piloting Agile, what's the goal from piloting Agile? It is to prove the value of Agile, try it out for your own type of project, pharmaceutical, hardware, software, business. We're actually piloting Agile now, and I'm so excited about this. We're going to probably publish a case study on it. We've got Agile going for a business team. It's a complete business operations team. No IT involvement whatsoever, a bunch of claims auditors and adjudication adjusters and all of that, and they're going to be attempting to move to stable teams with a work management team that takes care of the backlog, and they're going to get work done using Kanban walls, and it has nothing to do with IT whatsoever. It's just pure operational work that comes in. So you can, it's really, when you understand Agile, your goal from piloting it is to see, does it work for us, and how does it work for us, and what are the various things that we love about it, and how can we maybe adjust a few things to work. But what I will always say is, please try the recipe the first time, and then adjust it, adjust it from the retrospectives, but don't go in before you've even tried some of the basic stuff. Like if you're really going to apply Scrum, immediately deciding, no, we don't want the daily stand-up, no, we're going to just skip the retrospective, we don't need that. That's a bad recipe for a disaster immediately, because you don't even know why we've created some of these practices, and you haven't applied them yet to know if they're going to work or not. So we normally suggest, please, attempt first to try the basic recipe, and then allow the team, not management, but the team, to begin to say, here's what's working and here's what's not working. So that's the goal of pilot. Scaling Agile, and we have several organizations that are in the scaling phase. This is where, look, we know this works. We got it now. This definitely works, and you definitely now have some sort of strategic leaders that are interested in this, and they're like, do it for all these teams. I want 40 teams, 50 teams, all my teams, whatever number of teams. I want them to begin to adopt Agile. Does this happen? Yes, it's all over. A lot of companies around you right now are scaling Agile adoption. They're going into multiple teams all at the same time, and there's a completely different strategy around that, right? So it's not the same as piloting. One of the gotchas that I've seen is companies pilot Agile, and once it succeeds on 2 or 3 or 4 teams, they think they're done. They just stop there. They're like, we got it. It's working. And somehow there's this evolution that's supposed to happen on its own. They're thinking the grassroots movement is just going to immediately scale. Maybe if you're really lucky, but I think you should have a strategy around scaling Agile and helping and supporting. Also, if you don't have a strategy around scaling, what you end up getting is a hodgepodge of different Agile methods and techniques and estimating practices and this and that, things that have no consistency whatsoever all over the organization. And we're never proponents of saying that all teams must apply Agile the same way. No, but we are saying in a similar way, especially if you're scaling. If I've got 25, 30, 40 teams that are all doing Agile, I do need some level of consistency on, for example, how they're reporting back their velocity, or how are they measuring their success, or whether they're using Kanban, or how their wall looks. It doesn't really matter, but are they all using a tool, or are they not using a tool, So there's some level of consistency of expectations and roles. But that's the scaling. So scaling is really about taking this to bigger, larger programs, getting wider adoption. Enterprise adoption, we have a few clients right now that are doing enterprise adoption. God, this is magic. This is really beautiful. So enterprise adoption is where the organization really just gets it. They know that a lot of these methods, whether it's Agile or Lean, is about organizing work from the very top all the way down. And again, watch that webinar on rethinking portfolio and capacity planning. But this is where the organization begins to design itself as a group of stable teams. And instead of looking at it itself from a hierarchical perspective of who reports to who, and that's fine, you can still keep that, if that's really important, keep the who reports to who view. But you're starting to design the stable team picture of how does the work flow? How does this work flow through these teams? And so what happens in an enterprise adoption stage, things like lean portfolio management's rolled out, things like changing HR practices for how you measure performance, how you incentivize people, definitely a lot more servant leadership facilitation. I mean, it really becomes changing your vendor management and contracting procedures, talking to your auditing team and helping them understand the Agile artifacts. So it becomes a real full transformation. So these are the 3 steps to maturity, and the scope of this webinar is not going to be to go through the scaling and the enterprise, so I'm just going to hide this for right now so we don't overwhelm you, and let's just focus on the piloting. So again, piloting, scaling, and enterprise, this is the same 3 steps that we just talked about. Before you even start the pilot, there's some basic things to do, and here's some of the high-level deliverables, and I'll walk through them over here. One of them is creating your vision. What are we doing and why? What are our objectives, and how will we measure success? Some of the foundation activities is getting education and buy-in. Really identify some of your key stakeholders that you want to influence with Agile, and then form the Agile Champions team if possible. I do have some clients that don't do this at the beginning. They really just get enough people to buy in, they get some pilots going, and then they form the Agile Champions team maybe within the next few months, once there's more excitement. Transformation roadmap, design some sort of a roadmap and set some specific milestones. For example, if this was this year, maybe we decide that in January this will be planning and set up for piloting Agile, and then in January I'm going to roll out the pre-Agile survey. So how are things now? What are the specific things that I want to measure to get my fundamental metrics that I'm going to compare against later? And maybe I'm going to stand up the Agile Champions team and have them work throughout those next 5 months over here. And then I'm going to stand up one team. I'm going to roll up, while this team is being stood up and executing and delivering value, I'm also going to get Agile for leaders and Agile for product owners going in these first couple of months to get them on board. So this is almost like a meet in the middle, right? And then after a few months of this team stabilizing, I'm going to pilot Agile on team number 2, just to see how it's all going with these 2 teams. I'm going to create a Scrum Master community of practice. What that means is I'm at least going to get some of the Scrum Masters, and potentially there's 2, maybe even 3 teams, and get them to come together, even if it's every Friday, to talk about lessons learned, what are they seeing, how can they improve the current adoption of those 2 or 3 teams. Continuously throughout the whole process, you're planning, inspecting, adapting, and measuring. And that is normally the role of the Agile Champions team, right? Along with the Agile coach or the Enterprise Transformation coach, would be continuously looking at the adoption, figuring out what's working, what's not. And typically within the pilot, I don't think you have to finalize this, but you should have some level of a basic Agile toolkit, which is how we do Agile here in this organization, roles and responsibilities, one-page guidelines. This really needs to be lightweight. If you're starting to write a 50-page document, no one's going to read it. I'll just tell you right now. Agile teams like lightweight guidelines, just one-page videos. That's why we have agilevideos.com. That's part of the toolkit. One page. One of the downloads that I have for you at the end of this webinar is Agile meetings and their agendas. And for every Agile meeting, there's just a one page that says, here's the meeting, here's the purpose, here's the agenda, here's who should attend. Just simple guides like that for people to know how to do it. And then maybe in August, you're doing some soft skill workshops. You know, the team's sort of been doing Agile, and now you're doing more of the people transformation. You're doing servant leadership, facilitation, collaboration. You're helping them learn some of that. So this is just an example. You don't have to do it this way. Yours might look completely different. But the idea is that there's very specific goals, specific measures for the process. Selecting an Agile. 10 minutes. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Selecting an Agile pilot. So when you're selecting an Agile pilot, make sure it's the right size. So general recommendations, don't have something so small that people don't even get to, practice Agile well before it's finished. So I don't know. I think anything less than 2 months is too small to even really, and I'm not saying that it doesn't succeed at all. I'm just saying I think, you want something that's going to be more than just 8 weeks of effort. Not too large. I mean, and we have for some of the companies that we talked about, piloted Agile with large, projects immediately, but that was more like a project recovery effort really than piloting. If I had to pick it again, I'd probably go with something just less than 6 months, just enough to deliver value, something that's going to release within at least 6 months so that people can see and get excitement. You definitely need the right product owner. And the right product owner is someone from the business who's willing to engage from you. They need to be knowledgeable, empowered to make decisions, and they do need to be committed and engaged to be with the team. So no, you don't want to pick that high-level executive who has absolutely no time and say he's going to be the product owner. Maybe that will be a sponsor, and that's good. We want to have a good, influential sponsor. But we need a product owner who's really going to be excited and be a cheerleader for the team and roll up their sleeves and a good customer. You also do want an influential senior level executive sponsor to bring visibility to the success of Agile when it does succeed. You need a project that has the right visibility and value. So please pick something that does have some value. I mean, don't pick something that's like just getting through a backlog of bug fixes. You could do that if you wanted to. I'm not saying it's a horrible idea, but if you want Agile to be a successful pilot and you want people to really speak about it, they have to feel like they've actually gotten value out of it. And make sure you've picked the right team. So the right team is, don't try Agile with immediately a team of 50 people unless you're going to break them down into smaller sub-teams, which is what we normally do for a large program. And so it's 7 plus or minus 2. Make sure that you've got some committed and dedicated people. Please don't have a team of everyone's 10% allocated to this project. Everyone's working on 5 other things, and we're going to try Agile by grabbing 25% of everyone's time. Now, I know, I've been there. We work with real-world companies. You don't have dedicated resources. I understand that problem. What I'm suggesting, though, is for you to pilot Agile the right way, you should at least have a core team that is somewhat dedicated. And somewhat dedicated means 75 to 80%. I realize that some people might still have some support activities that they do. If you can get 100% allocation, yes, that's the best thing to do. But please, please get someone who's actually dedicated. The right skills, yes, don't have a team that's completely, everyone's a newbie and there's no one in there that's experienced. So the right Agile team. Scrum, Kanban, XP. Which one should you move forward with? Extreme programming is easy. You should probably adopt it if you're doing software development. There's a lot of techniques in extreme programming that are very useful for software. The question becomes Scrum or Kanban, because both of them apply to non-IT. So whether I'm doing IT or non-IT. I'll give you my short answer. The short answer is if I have projects and those projects are strategic projects that have deadlines or that have specific scope, and something's coming up within the next 6 months and there's a specific product owner that needs to get something done, and I know that they want those sprints, those fixed time boxes, every 2 weeks we're going to show something, or every 3 weeks we're going to show something, then Scrum feels really good, right? So Scrum gives you that high level of visibility and tracking, especially if you have a very specific goal, there's a due date, there's a specific product owner, and many times we'll still use a Kanban wall with Scrum, and that's called Scrumban. Kanban, we've started to use a lot more for operational enhancements and support. The kind of work that's just continuously coming in. It's not necessarily the big strategic projects, it's the enhancement requests that continuously flow. we normally put up just a pure Kanban wall. And we've done a lot of different things in the middle between that. You can read this when you download this presentation, but see, here's the top questions to think about when you're thinking about Scrum. And if you're new to Scrum and don't know what it is, there's an amazing set of 4 videos here that we've recorded for you just to give you the basics of Scrum. And then there's that video, the journey through the Agile lifecycle. So these are really good just getting started with Agile and Scrum videos. If you're new to Kanban, these are the questions that might make Kanban apply to you. And Heinrich has a really great Kanban Kickstart example for how to get started with Kanban and what a wall could look like. Common adoption gotchas, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. No collaboration area or room, so not planning for any place for the team to sit together is a gotcha. Not educating management. Not planning ahead for the test environments, thinking that somehow the test environments are just going to show up. Only training IT or only training the development team members, only training the Scrum Masters and not the team, not designing a roadmap for your adoption, no clearly defined measures for success, no coaching for internal or external, so just thinking the team needs to just figure out how to do Agile on their own. No change management plan, not understanding that Agile is a different way of thinking, a different way of doing work. And so not taking the soft side of the transformation, just going with the checklist Agile adoption approach. Not thinking about or forming the champions team, the Agile champions team, basically just having one area own Agile. No visibility or impediment removal paths. So from the very beginning of piloting Agile, when teams get stuck, there's no clear way of how do they remove impediments, and usually that's the Agile Champions team that helps with that. So and we talked about many of these, as you begin your journey to moving to Agile, these are the things that you can think about measuring. Time to market, ROI, quality, customer satisfaction, predictability. By thinking about these things ahead of time, you might be able to send out some surveys or gather some of the data that give you the before so that you can figure out the after. So that's another really lessons learned that we've had, is we really need to think about some of this and document it ahead of time. You can download this PDF presentation from tinyurl.com/agile training. I've also put in there the Agile meetings and their agendas cheat sheet. And feel free to visit agilevideos.com and watch more of these or watch some of our previous videos on the lead. Now let me go ahead and take some questions. Yes, that's why we think the Agile Champions team, we like to form that Agile Champions team from the very beginning, because we want them to have a wall that tracks the steps of transforming to Agile. So many teams that successfully, and companies that successfully adopt Agile, have a plan of rolling out Agile. It's sort of like if you guys have a big plan to roll out Six Sigma or Lean, you know, how are you going to do that, and how will you monitor the success of it? So yes, I would say that it should. It might not be a big project at the beginning, but the more teams that adopt it, the bigger it will be. Wow, what a great question, and I'm just losing it. There was a specific change management method. The ADKAR. Yep, the ADKAR change management process was used in one of our large clients, and I've heard good success with it. So whether you use ADKAR or whether you use Cutter, or you just sit down and just make sure you've thought about some of these aspects of change management, the education, the marketing, the buy-in, figuring out some of the roles and responsibilities and some of the fear that people are going to have and how to address that early. But ADKAR would be another one, and I'm not familiar with Cutter. Oh, the risks are pretty big if those functional managers are not the real product owners, if they're just proxies. What I mean by a proxy, because remember, product owners should be someone from the business who has the most to gain or lose from the success of this project. So if I'm developing software, I'll go to a software example, and you're my product owner, it means that potentially the software is going to be used by you and your team. You're the one that has the most to gain or lose, or maybe your customers are actually going to be using it. If your functional managers are not the real business people, then you're getting secondhand information. They're not really representing the business. So I would say it is a high risk. It's sort of like putting a BA, taking a BA and making them the product owner. They're all proxies. Now, I mean, can they do a good job? Of course they can if they're communicating well with the business. But you're not going back to the heart of Agile, which is the real customer or the real stakeholder in this, who has the most to gain or lose, needs to be part of the project. I'm Sally at agiletraining.com. So for those of you that just want more information, Sally at Agile Training. Thank you so much for your feedback, by the way. If there's anything that we could have done better, go ahead and post it in the chat.